A few years ago, I received a call from my brother's cell phone at 2 o'clock in the morning. And it was unusual for him to make such a call. And so in a sleepy manner, I fumbled in the darkness and I found my cell phone and answered it. And when I said hello, I could hear someone in the background breathing on the other end of the line, but there was no response. So I texted him to see, are you okay? And again, still there was nothing. About a few minutes later, another call from my brother's cell phone came through, and again I said hello, and I could hear that same breathing. After several texts, I assumed that he probably was sleep dialing me or something along those lines, and so I turned off my phone and I went to sleep. The next morning, I called my mother and I asked, have you heard from David? Because I got a strange call from him last night at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I said hello and I texted him, but he didn't respond. And she sort of laughed and said, oh, that was Brody, my 3-year-old nephew. He had gotten out of bed and was very quiet, didn't want to wake his parents apparently, and took their cell phone and wanted to, talk to someone. And so he began to call. And I said, oh, that's so funny. I said, I wonder why he called me. And there was silence on the other end of the line. She said, well, after he called you, he called me. He called your sisters and your other brother. He called your brother's work and left a message there. Called his grandparents in New Hampshire, Papagenos, the music teacher, the pediatrician's office. He also called the eye doctor, the dentist, and the bank. He stopped somewhere around 4 o'clock in the morning when he set off the emergency SOS feature and woke up his parents. When my brother asked him why he had done this, he said, well, I wanted to talk with somebody. I was lonely. And so I figured I would call someone so they would play with me or they could talk to me, tell me a story. And so as I was reading our scriptures this week, especially the book of Isaiah, it just reminded me of that event. Especially when Isaiah says, seek the Lord while he may be found. Call him while he is near. Isaiah gently reminds us that God is persistent in his call. He never really gives up on any of us. Out of love and out of his devotion to us, he calls to us every day. Sometimes even at the strangest of hours, we can sometimes hear the call of God in our lives. It's a wonderful, wonderful way of reminding us of God's ever-present call in our life, whether we be very young or very young at heart. God calls to each and every one of his children with love to do the work that he has that only we can satisfy. In Matthew's gospel, Jesus tells the parable of the vineyard owner and the workers. And for me, this is a very special parable because it was the parable, of course, that helped me to accept that call to the diaconate. The parable speaks about how God goes out into the world and calls over and over and over again. Calls on us to live in the vineyard of the Lord. Sometimes even at 2 o'clock in the morning. And whereas you and I might give up on such a call, turn off the ringer and resign ourselves to checking it out in the morning, God never gives up on us. He accepts us and loves us for who we are, and he invites us to be so much more in life. His persistence, his love is eternal, and he wishes to share that wonderful message with each and every one of us, his children. When we look at the history of the church, and even the meaning of the word church, it comes to us from the Greek ecclesia, and more specifically, ekkleo, which means to be called. Each and every one of us is called by God to fulfill some beautiful miracle in this world. Now, we might not actually be at that point where we're ready for that. We might hear him calling to a deeper relationship and be like, yeah, later I'll get to it. I'm busy right now. But when we embrace that call, whether it is to be a catechist or to serve in John 21, to be a better listener at work or at school, whatever that special call is, it's unique and it's powerful and it belongs to you as God's gift. And so I suppose, knowing that, the only question that remains is, are we willing? Are we willing to answer that call?